Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching episode 3 of season 2 of my adventures with Superman. Now, in this episode, we're introduced to Dr. Irons, a robotics scientist who works for Amertech, who has created the Metallo suits. It's interesting considering that Metallo was an early villain in the Superman comics, basically a man who's also a robot who's run by kryptonite, but here the Metallo suits are basically suits of robot armor that are powered by an alternate energy source that has no need for fossil fuels. And that energy source also happens to run a power plant run by Amertech. But when Dr. Irons figures out that there's a fatal flaw within the Amertech's power source, he tries to warn the CEO about it, and turns out, naturally, like a lot of CEOs, he decides that the fatal flaw in the programming isn't worth worrying about if he can beat his competitors when it comes to this new product. So, Dr. Irons, as well as Silas Stone, Victor Stone's father, the guy who eventually becomes Cyborg, they end up having to remove all the evidence of the robot's fatal flaws, and their homes get attacked by Livewire, who's currently working for Task Force X. This brings in Lois Lane and Vicki Vale, who try to break the story in their own ways, while Superman tries to help out Dr. Irons with saving Metropolis from possibly becoming the epicenter of a giant bomb. So yeah, like with a lot of different bits of Superman's mythos, this episode does happen to mix and match a few of them to basically make a whole new version of it. For example, Amertech is taken over by LexCorp at the end, so LexCorp has its own bunch of suits that I'm just guessing are going to be used later to attack Superman. Amanda Waller's working directly with LexCorp in this case, which does kind of tie in with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, but I think that's just a coincidence that both games happen to have Lex Luthor and Amanda Waller working together. And this episode also has Vicki Vale give Lois Lane the opportunity to work for the Gotham Gazette. She does bring up some genuine points that some jobs can't last forever and that you've got to move on to move up in some cases, but Vicki hasn't taken into account how much Superman means to Lois Lane and how much she's probably going to stay with the Daily Planet if it means staying with him. Plus, Clark has to consider General Lane's arguments that he is always late for everything and always oblivious to everything, since naturally Lane also doesn't know that Clark Kent is Superman. So he ends up saying that about Clark instead of stating that his secret identity. Plus, Flip actually gets a cool moment with her flying newsroom helicopter, and considering that Flip was originally one of the news kids in the original comics, though she was a boy in the comics, I didn't think she'd get that many cool moments. I was kind of indifferent towards her in the first season, but I like that she got her moment here. On top of that, I appreciate that Superman has to ultimately have someone else help to save the day, and he even gives Dr. Irons credit in that regard. When he faltered, Dr. Irons was able to help out with destroying the pillars that ultimately prevented a giant nuclear explosion. But now he can't even use his own mech suits since they're under ownership of Lex Luthor. But I'm sure Dr. Irons will help out later in the season too. So yeah, good episode. Looking forward to the rest of the season. See you next time.